Why, hello there. It's me, Jeremy, your favorite bald dude telling you about Standard and Strange, a store and a brand with simple rules. Sell clothes they themselves would wear, manufacture it ethically, and build it to last. From boots made in Oregon to loop wheel garments made in Japan, find all the best clothes for your wardrobe at Standard and Strange. StandardandStrange.com. Hey folks, it's Jeremy Kirkland. You're listening to Blammo. How we doing? My foot is asleep. I'm recording this right now. I'll be honest. I've been down here. I've been working, and when I do my intros, I always do this like the night before, straight off the dome. And I guess I was down here a while, burning the midnight oil, and my freaking foot's asleep. You got that weird thing with your foot, all the tingles going up your legs. This is why I do these things. I do my walk and talks. Like I'm probably pacing around my neighborhood. People are going to report me on Nextdoor as some weirdo walking around talking to himself. But I got my AirPods in. I don't know if you ever do this. I'll take a meeting. I'll be listening to music. But I've done so many of these. I'm like, I'm just going to go for a walk. I'm going to get a little cardio, just a little chill session going. And I'll throw on some heavy instrumental stuff. Like I've gone nuts with Bach. Which is not that heavy, but man, there's some bangers. Shout out Bach, whatever you're doing, wherever you are. Thanks for those bangers. But look, I find music, it challenges me, it inspires me. It's so near and dear to my heart. A personal favorite is my guest this week, Manchester Orchestra. Andy Hall of Manchester Orchestra. But look, I was listening to their new album, and I'll put a track on, and I walk around, I look at the sky, the trees, the houses, and I feel like I'm in a music video. Don't act like you don't do this stuff. I know you people have walked around and you're listening to some heavy stuff, whether it's Manchester Orchestra or it's Sigur Rós or Max Richter or some sort of stuff, and you're like, I'm in a movie. I'm in a music video. What's up? It's the greatest feeling ever. If you haven't done this, I encourage you to do it. No one's going to know if you're doing it anyway. Just go walk around, listen to your headphones. It's a great feeling. So, that being said, my guest this week is Andy Hall of Manchester Orchestra. And it was great. Andy and I discussed nice guy indie rock, broken social scene, working with Phoebe Bridgers, working with the Daniels on Swiss Army Man, the best live shows, heavy lyrics, revisiting Limp Bizkit. Oh, it's a good one. Headphone records, music docs, their upcoming tour with Jimmy Eat World, Comedy Bang Bang, and their new EP, The Valley of Vision. Here we go. Well, it's nice to meet you.
You as well.
Yeah, you're right. It's a wild world, indie rock.
It is. Whatever it means now.
There you go. There's the theme of the pod. What does indie rock mean now? Because you're about as mainstream as indie rock can get. You're out there, man. You guys are huge.
Well, I've never cared about any of that ever. I always, once I started meeting people that were in quote unquote cool indie rock bands, and they were way nicer than any press person that I'd ever met, and realized that this was all just made up by labels and press people, and there isn't really a thing, and only like the real assholes in bands think about it. Then it was just like that's dirt off my shoulders, man. Didn't matter to me anymore.
So wait, you never had the bad moment where you were like, you met your hero and the dude was a downer?
Oh, I've had a million of them. I think it's more, just what, and I'm talking like my early 20s, late teens when we were thrown into this thing. Here's a great example.
Yeah.
Like there wasn't a cooler band that you would think were more hip and not cool than like Broken Social Scene and 2005.
Oh, Kevin Drew,
right?
What is up? Yeah.
And then we do this Australian tour with them, the nicest people in the world, super inviting to us. They had no idea who we were, had no reason to be nice to us. And it was just a little light bulb that was like, oh, okay, so the assholes are the press, not the actual artists. It's those are the people making divisions and all this stuff. Where in reality, after as many years as I've been doing it now, it's just you have respect for anybody who does it as a living well, no matter what they sound like. You have to have respect for them. At least that's how I look at it.
No, I think you're right. I think there's definitely a shared camaraderie when it's like when you're in it, especially now because, you mentioned Broken Social Scene. They're a band who were in a band before like the politics and, capital B business of what it meant to be in a band. If you were in a band pre-Spotify and you also like, because you guys kind of have your own label sort of thing too.
Yep.
And so you exist parallel to the business versus somebody who's got a 360 deal now. I think there's definitely like a shared grief and joy because you know that whatever you're on at the moment, it can go up, it can go down, but you still got your music.
Absolutely. That's it. That's all you've got. Yes.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I think there is that sort of like you had to make that commitment to, well, you invest in yourself in that sense,
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
The 360 wave was, that was probably this 360 thing started like maybe 6, 7, 8 years after we started going, early 2010s. And that was just, I remember feeling really, because we were shopping for labels. We made a record called Cope by ourselves, and we were seeing if there were any cool partners that we could collaborate with, and a lot of the options out there were really like just sign away everything, and luckily we didn't. I always felt bad for those bands who were coming up and like didn't have the option really to find something else, or if you did, it was one thing just seemed way more enticing. Like it made sense to me why up and coming bands were signing those kind of deals, because it sort of gave you a leg up in every area. But then you fast forward that 5-10 years later, it's like, oh no, now they own everything.
Yeah, geez. I think that's, I've talked to tons of musicians on this pod over the years, and also like other friends who have had who are in bands. And I think like I always love talking about that side of the business, because I think a lot of times, especially like casual music fans now, don't have the full, no pun intended, like 360 degree like understanding of what it takes to exist in that business, and like what artists are giving up and what they're doing. Versus like, so I have this, as an aside, I have like kind of like a weird, I don't know, business conviction whenever I'm listening to a band. So if I like a band, I pay for Spotify and Apple Music only because I use Apple Music for the higher bit rate. If I'm like sitting in that chair, having my weird little like, listen to an album all the way through moment. But if I really like a band, I'll either try to get them on Bandcamp or buy their vinyl. Cause then I own it, even if like the record player hasn't been working in ages or whatever, but it's like, I want to make sure that there's that level of, I don't know, support and, connecting exactly with that. Right. And I try to go see the band anytime I can, which now that I live in the Midwest, holy shit, it's crazy easy to do. It's crazy easy. I'm seeing like Fleet Foxes and Tom York, and it's like down the street.
I know. And without the fanfare of having to be in a big city and not being able to get tickets, Right? It was like that growing up in high school too, like living in Atlanta. Just always, you could always see whoever you want. I just saw Tom York a couple months ago. It was awesome.
Oh, did you see The Smile?
Yeah. It was the greatest show I think I've ever seen in my entire life. And that is like no conjecture.
Whoa.
Like I know. And I've seen Radiohead a bunch of times. I've seen a lot of great shows. Before that show, the best show I had ever seen was Mars Volta. I skipped out on my prom in high school and went to go see Mars Volta right after Francis the Mute came out. No opener.
Oh my God.
3-hour show. John Theater on drums. They played for 3 hours and no one spoke during the show. I hadn't tried drugs or drinking yet, and I was high as all hell leaving that. And not even because of a contact. I was musically high.
Oh, okay.
I could not believe what I had just seen. And then I felt that way, as like a 36-year-old watching them last December at the Eastern in Atlanta. I couldn't believe it. It was just so good.
Yeah, Omar Rodriguez Lopez, hell of a musician. Very, very underrated with just that dude. I don't know what, maybe it's because he doesn't do that much press, but like, why aren't people talking about that dude more?
Maybe it's because there were so many projects for so long. And they kept changing band names. It was kind of hard to like remember what those dudes were up to, I was always into it every time I heard it, but it was kind of hard to keep up.
Yeah, because Because, I mean, speaking of that, like with Manchester Orchestra, you have evolved a significant amount. When you listen to early MO records,
Yeah.
and now you hear what you guys are at now. I mean, did you ever think about like, oh, we got to change the band name? Because I know you've done kind of stuff that's you individually, but like,
not like actually considering it. I think because we started making left turns pretty soon. So like our first record our second record was pretty different from our first record, and our third record was pretty different. And they all kind of kept going in a certain direction that I felt, well, I mean, not at the time. I heard some quote the other day. I was watching something about Tyler, the Creator, and Pharrell was talking about trying to do something different is a lonely game. And when it works, it is the greatest feeling in the world and you feel like a genius. And when it doesn't work immediately, you have to have the patience and hard skin to and the faith in the music you've created that eventually this might come around. And that's sort of been the case of our band for a long time. I think until our fifth record, Black Bottle to the Surface, which was seemingly the first time there was more than 50% of the fan base going like, okay, I like this. Not, I've been betrayed by this. And then coming back 5 years and going like, no, actually, I kind of see what they were trying to do there. So I think because we built up that thick skin and we just don't want to do the same thing. And ultimately, that's really what it comes down to. I would rather end the band on a high note than start to repeat ourselves in that sense. So makes the records harder, but also more enjoyable.
Yeah, I think about that too, because like what I was talking about earlier in terms of like the depth of a relationship people have with musicians. I think people forget that the music that they listen to, someone made that. And a lot of times as a music fan, in some ways you don't want your favorite band to change. Like, it's difficult, right?
It is, but yes and no. But then I think you'd probably also say when you do get a record from a band that does feel like the last thing, you are disappointed. It's like, well, disappointed is the wrong word, but you're not like challenged by it.
Okay. I hear you.
In a sense. And that's actually cool with me with a lot of bands. Like Built to Spill is one of my favorite bands ever. And like, I'm cool with Built to Spill records. Like just do what you're doing, dude, for as long as you want to do it. I'm into it. I don't need vast, even though they did that for the first 5-6 records of their career. Like I don't need a new Built to Spill record to be a techno version of like what they're doing, or like I don't need Kid A from Built to Spill. I don't need it because I love what it is. Although I'd love to hear that actually.
Yeah, I was going to say I'd be into that.
I would too. I just mean I don't feel like disappointed in that sense. I'm very just pleased to have one of my favorite songwriters releasing new music. John K. Sampson's another example of that. Like I don't need something that different. A lot of that honestly has to do with lyrics and melody and storytelling too, because I think that those guys do keep pushing it in that sense. And that's a big reason why I'm listening to a lot of records like that. Like I want to hear, their fresh perspective on lyrics and the story.
Yeah. Like I'm like such a Dylan junkie, but I didn't really understand Dylan until maybe 5 years ago. And so, I mean, reading just tons and tons of different books of, the various biographies and whatever. But like when Dylan went electric, right? And
and everyone hated it.
Yeah, man. And now
it betrayed music to them.
Okay, right? See, like that's a thing. And it on one hand, I'm sure in hindsight now we can think about this and like, wow, what an incredible musician to have such a deep relationship with their fans that person can't. But like that shit messed with him hard. Like Dylan did not know how to handle people getting pissed off at him and doing that. And like then he just went nuts. And you got Rolling Thunder Review.
Think about how crazy he must have felt too, being like, not only am I going electric, but my band is the band. It is like the best band. And we all know that
Which
now.
They didn't even realize that.
Correct. But he knew. That's why they were in his band,
Yeah.
And I remember there's so many great clips of that stuff of just people going like, all these drunks in his band behind a bunch of talentless hacks,
Shitty guys. Yeah, they don't know what they're doing.
They don't know what they're doing. It's like, and I just love that perspective too. It's like, do you think they're the ones that don't know what they're doing? I sometimes want to ask people who are like hypercritical of music in general, like, do you think you know what you're talking about? Or should we perhaps trust the people who like do it for a living, you know?
Oh, absolutely. I think that's got to be the last 10 or 15 years where now you have social media and you have this like newer relationship with bands to where, I mean, imagine, right? Like 20 years ago, like, or let's do this. What was the first record that you purchased, like with your money?
The Rock de la Familia, the Dynasty, the Rockefeller, collaboration that had all those. That was like the first one I snuck, past. Cause I grew up in church. And so we had that terrible, like spreadsheet. It's like, if you like Green Day and you like Rage Against the Machine, then meet us down here in the middle and you'll find some terrible version you never want to hear again.
Okay.
And so,
you mean like the Christian band that would play?
Yeah, that's going to scratch that
whatever
non-evil
was.
itch for you, you know?
Okay.
And so I was just always on the lookout for stuff, and I had to burn things. Like I had to rip CDs from friends and try and find stuff. Like, you know, maybe like the first record I really like deeply loved and kept close to me was I got Color and the Shape, Foo Fighters, and
excellent album,
and 36 Chambers, that Wu-Tang record. And those two were ones that I was
Polar
holding really close. But they totally represent my musical taste to this day. You know, like they really do. It's like, you know, classic Foo Fighters, classic. And now like that Foo Fighters record's almost classic rock for our generation, you know?
Oh yeah. I mean, I'll raise the bar here. So I did the same thing in terms of burning CDs, and I had burned a Limp Bizkit album. I'm sorry, Lord. And
no, I mean that's a bit. Which one?
Fan. It was the one with Nookie on it.
Significant Other, I think.
Oh, damn! You got your good memory. Yeah,
well, yeah, with like the spray paint. I biscuited for a summer in the 8th grade. You know, I'm not ashamed to say it.
And I burned it and I wrote Carmen.
Love it. Perfect.
Well, until Mom found it. And so Mom thinks her and her friends are going to listen to some Carmen. And it's not Newsboys. This isn't Jesus Freak. She puts it on and all of a sudden she starts to hear break stuff.
That's so good, dude.
Dude, I was busted.
I have to go back and look because I don't remember how it starts, but I know that Significant Other cannot start subtly. There is no way.
No. It's just like this. There's an intro and then just like this.
I was going to say the intro, and I like to, if you don't mind, I'm just going to pull it up on my phone too because I'm just dying to know what.
Oh, please.
What did the intro say on this thing?
I think I had the intro skipped because it was a burn, or it was all attached to the first track.
I'm just saying there's no way you and your mom and her friends in the Suburban.
Yeah, man.
Yes.
Mom, this is Carmen. No, get off my back. Trust me.
Dude, you know what? You can say what you want about Limp Bizkit, but
Wes Borland was a good guitar player. I will admit, Fred Durst kind of was just a goober, and I'm sure he did some stupid stuff that someone knows that I don't know. But for just the sonic music, that stuff slaps for a reason.
You're not wrong, my friend. Yeah. You go back, it's like, yeah, we were trying to like make some rock stuff with like House of Pain guitar parts. You're like, yeah, I can totally see that now. Yeah, I get it.
Right? It all made sense. But that's funny, yeah, because my dad was a pastor too, and I mean, we very similar background in terms of angst, but being, you know, over churched or however you would want to describe yourself.
That's a perfect way to put it.
Yeah, can't walk away from it though. I mean, I listen to your lyrics and I'm like, damn, that guy's wrestling with something.
Oh yeah, it's all still in there. And I think it's all, you know, it's me determining my own path with all that stuff, you know? I'm not angry about it, anymore, which is really good.
Well, wait, when did the anger go away?
I think I started at least trying to plead with some sort of peace around our record cope. And I think I started to have a conversation with myself and the lyrics I was writing of like, you know, how do you want to frame your life? How do you want to make decisions in your life? Do you want to continue to blame and get angry about the things that you don't think were correct, which had a whole lot more to do with people than it did with, you know, necessarily like lessons that you could learn, you know, from the Bible or in spirituality. And so, yeah, I think that's probably when it started to look that way for me. It was less, a lot less just anger and more trying to have empathy, really. I mean, I think that's essentially the ultimate goal, is to kind of, you think about pain and moments from that time, but also, if you can look at that time and try to have, it's a church word, but try to have grace towards people and have forgiveness and realize that they are also just human beings. That became less of like a stronghold on me,
Yeah, that's heavy.
It is heavy. I think it's probably why I won't stop writing about it too, because it also then folds into, I have children of my own now, and, how exactly do you want to bring them up, and what is that? And also trying to explain to them, some of the like pitfalls and things that I noticed of people in church, and, the strange sort of, I'm not sure what your situation was, but, there's good folks everywhere and there's bad folks everywhere. And that does not exclude a form of church or religion in any way.
Yeah. It's interesting because the last pod we did not that long ago, my buddy and I ended up talking about this because, I have 2 kids. I have a 5-year-old and a 9-month-old, and I'm trying to figure out how much do I let them around, the church. My daughter loves church. She thinks it's amazing. Yep. But I don't like church. I like Jesus, but I don't really like the church, especially now, because anytime I tell anyone about it, I feel like I have to have a 20-minute conversation explaining that I don't think Trump is the Messiah and all these other things. So it's really difficult.
Understand more what you're talking about. I think it comes down for me just about some like personal truths that I feel. So like in my opinion and in my knowledge of knowing what helps me, having a relationship with a higher power and following the teachings, the very bare basic teachings of what Jesus Christ said. I agree with all of that. It has helped me. It does help me. I am not here to tell everybody else they're wrong. I'm not here to tell everybody else I'm right. But it's also, like you said, it's a tough thing where you have to have so many disclaimers in order to even talk about having a relationship with a higher power in general. That I do work a lot of that stuff out with what I'm writing. And for me, I've just been so fortunate that my actual process of working through issues in life and processing has always come in the form of sitting down and writing a song, never with the intention of, does this need to be a Manchester song or will people like this? Literally just I have thoughts in my brain that I will feel better after they are out and then they are on the page. And I'll learn things about what I was trying to work through while writing the song. Moments where you go, all right, I was having this conversation just a couple months ago, writing some new music with the guys and was going through some lyrics towards the end. And I'm like, I've got this choice. Like this whole song's about these 2 people. And like, there's a choice with the final 2 lines of this song. The whole thing's a little ambiguous. We don't know which way that we're leaning. Is this like the saddest song, or perhaps there is some hope here? Like, which one are we going to land on?
Right.
And I find that where I am now, I lean more towards like, well, why would I want to even put into the world just like a declarative negative sentiment unless it makes the story better, So it's very conflicting.
If that's what you're feeling, though,
it's exactly, right? Yes. And so it is about like being truthful that way. And like, I think that makes a difference for me between, like trying to paint some picture that isn't real or being real about it. And the truth about it all, with all this stuff you can write, I can write a million songs about, what my current theology and the state of the world and how I'm terrified about the future and all that shit. But like, really, I just don't have any answers. And I'm not sure I'm even going to get closer by investigating like this, but it helps me. It helps me kind of figure out what I'm thinking and talking about.
Attention! Do you even loop wheel, bro? Do you know what loop wheel garments are? Look, I actually didn't, honestly. I was just like, oh, it's a flex, or it's this special kind of cotton. But no. The folks at Standard & Strange dropped a ton of incredible knowledge bombs and their incredible loop wheel tee, made in Japan, of course. Back to loop wheel. It's an antique circular knitting machine that relies on gravity and uses spring-bearded needles. What the heck? Do you even get it? Look, all you need to know is it's dope. It's better if you want to learn more. Visit standardandstrange.com/loop wheel and check out their new loop wheel tees. Your boy is partial to yellow because, duh. But the tees are fire no matter what color. The fit is spot on, and it's a classic tee that looks like it's from every era, to be honest with you, and fits like a dream. And it's from the folks at Standard & Strange. the shop that helps you own fewer, better things, run by industry vets who are focused on incredible product from incredible vendors. And look, if that's not your vibe, check out some of their huge offerings of Japanese denim or boots. But listen, the shirts, fam, the shirts. So, if you want to know more, visit standardandstrange.com. Loop wheel, baby. That's standardandstrange.com. Yeah, I mean, do you feel that weight? Because I think you're a band and a writer that your music already has tons of memories for people, right? That you're not a new band that just popped on TikTok. Like people have already had a deep relationship with your music. And because of that, like this is kind of what we were talking about earlier. Like there's an assumption of the experience that needs to happen. And it's like, I'll turn your music on, like Manchester Orchestra, Max Richter, this sort of stuff where it's like, I want optimistic, somewhat joyful, like processing. And I'll listen to it and it makes me focus. And sometimes I'm focusing very much on the music. Other times I'm focusing on something that's in my mind. But like that's the stuff that I turn to for. And so when you're writing music, do you feel the weight of like, this is the stuff that people want? Or are you just like, fuck it. Like I know you want that, but this is where I am right now. And you have to respect where I am.
Yeah. I mean, I don't know which one makes me sound worse, but it's option 2. I'm never.
None of these are bad.
I am truthfully never thinking about what anybody is going to think about it.
Well, that's good.
I'm really thinking about like, how can this move me even more, And so if I can get to a place where like, oh man, I was so honest in that it really makes me feel emotional and that can be like a really dark way or a really beautiful way. It could be like a line about my daughter, in both ways too. It could be a great line about my daughter, but just like, I'm most comfortable weirdly doing that. Like just trying to say the thing that is on my mind as most effectively and interestingly as possible. And thankfully I'm that way because I think I was too young to feel like insecure. Well, not insecure is the wrong word. I was too young to be afraid of being vulnerable. I just like, I knew that was affecting me to be super vulnerable. And then I saw that it was connecting with other people to be that vulnerable. And so, once we get into a place where the song is established and we're working on it, I will start to think, like, oh yeah, I can see that people will, or I'll send it to people that a short list of folks that I try and bounce things off of and go, am I working? Is this working the right way or not? And but it generally, like the rule of thumb is like the more honest it is and true to me, it seems to connect with people. So that's like a bonus.
I mean, absolutely. It definitely does. I was listening to the new EP. I mean, I had a copy of it earlier, but I was re-listening to it because like, I don't know, like I have car music and I have headphone music. And it's like, it's rare that there's a band that can kind of cross that threshold at the same time.
Oh, that's awesome. Wow.
To where it's like, I can listen to this and tune out. Yeah, no, I'm serious. I can listen to it and tune out in a good way.
Yep.
And then I can listen to it and also tune in to where it's like, okay, I want to read these lyrics now. I want to, because so much music is just so passive.
But yeah, that's why headphone records are the best. Right? Yeah, like that's what we try to make,
Sure.
And it's awesome. Like I really meant that. Like that's the greatest compliment because I have the same, and my favorite records are where they're bumping in the car. But yeah, you could really get introspective, with a glass or two of wine sitting on the back porch and taking it all in.
Yeah. I mean, I've talked about this tons on the pod that some people will probably even be annoyed, but it's like, it's been like my newest discovery in the sense that I'll sit and I'll listen to an album all the way through on headphones. I have a DAC that I'll use so I can get the highest possible bit rate. I have some fairly nice headphones, not these, that I'll use for it, and some of this stuff where it's like, I listen to the 24-bit remaster of Revolver.
Yeah, me too.
And it's like, I heard more of The Room. I could have sworn I heard more of The Room.
I mean, you're not wrong. It does sound different. It's crispy. I remember putting that on the studio speakers and be like, ooh,
right?
Ooh. Like, yeah. I mean, it's insane how they keep making. And I think they got a lot of that stuff with AI. Like they figured out a lot of the technology of that thing with AI, which is
don't tell me that.
Super unfortunate.
What if it's not real?
It probably isn't, dude.
Damn it.
Yeah. But like same thing when like in 2009 or 10 or 8, 9, 10, somewhere around then when they released all those records again. But it was finally stereo.
This is when they came on iTunes, right? That was a big Steve Jobs announcement.
You could buy the records, and they were finally in stereo and like super high res. And still to this day, my favorite way to listen and the best audio quality that I can get, other than just from the speakers at the studio, is a CD, because it is, it is not, the music is just pure, there's not a lot running, in between from just, artifact to your speaker. And we could just talk about that all the time. It's like when we're mixing stuff, we work with a brilliant engineer, producer, mixers woman, Catherine Marks, who's a dear friend. And I mean, dude, she has gotten so good at it now where she can tell what's missing in the low end on her iPhone speaker. She's like, oh yeah, we got to drop it a little. Yeah. And she's right. It's crazy.
Oh my God.
Because she kind of has to mix that way. You'll go in, like the best part about going to like the nicest studios in the whole world, and somebody, I was at Dave Sardi's house the other day, and like, sure enough, right in between his gazillion-dollar speakers, there's just some terrible JBL pop an iPod in, thing. You gotta ref it on those, you have to.
Yeah.
Because somebody.
No, you're right.
It's like remember getting in people's cars in high school and college, and like you'd go check their EQ and they're just, that whole thing is on flat. You're just going, what are you doing, man? You're not even bringing up the high end a little bit. You've been listening through a sock since you bought this car.
Well, dude, that's funny you said flat, because I was the person who would put my stuff flat, because I was like, it was the most backwards thing.
I love that.
No, because my dad was always like, no, like listen to everything flat, but he would listen to things on great reference speakers.
There you go.
And so I carried that effed up mentality that everything I listened to, I would always make it flat, because I was like, well, this is the way the artist intended. And it's like, no way did Lindsey Buckingham intend for me to listen to Rumors on a fucking
Toyota Corolla, speak
like
98
Corolla
speakers on
speakers.
flat. No, he would love for you to enhance that just a bit in the mids and the treble. I promise.
I know. So I would be like, no, it's got to be pure. It's, it was so stupid. And it was like, I knew just enough to be a little bit more of an idiot.
Well,
and
same here. We would have both just canceled each other out in our knowing of nothing,
Yeah, but like I'm not now like all into physical media for listening to stuff. To where like even like Blu-rays and stuff now, because my wife and I, we were talking, and it's like we always will sit and like look at budgets and dumb stuff. And I was like, why are we paying $15 a month for Spotify to listen to the same 4 albums? She's like, I basically listen to Phoebe Bridgers 24/7. And for me, I listen, now to be honest, I just listen to like weird Stan Getz while I'm working, and then I'll sit and have an actual album session.
Yeah, you treat records like movies in that sense. You're like sitting down to give it the time. Yeah.
Yeah, but it's like I'm like, we should just have CDs. And this, I'm not anti-spot or anti any of that stuff. It's just like I'm just renting this stuff. I can't have a deeper relationship if I don't own it.
I don't utilize curious if you do the like new Friday, like the new Music Friday thing. I never use that ever.
No way. Me either.
And I think that's a big reason why people do love it, is because it's giving them these recommendations and they're going like, holy cow, but and I'm not sure why I don't use it. Probably just because I want to hear what I want to hear. I still go searching for interesting things too, though. Like I'm definitely trying to find interesting records and stuff like that. Because that was the fun part of like the hunt back in the day. And maybe that new Music Friday just feels a little too like immediate, like I'm cheating or something.
Well, it's kind of forced, and it's like I'd rather have either one, a DJ tell me I have to listen to something, or like I still listen to Sirius XMU. Download 15 is one of my favorite shows. Yep. You guys were on there not that long ago.
Yeah,
but there was like, I don't know, I wanted the curation. But the other thing that happens, and I'm curious how you've processed this stuff, where if you're a younger music fan, and so the amount of people that saw and that are also now watching Swiss Army Man, thanks to Everything Everywhere,
yes,
and are like losing their shit over your guys' soundtrack, which still is one of the best soundtracks ever. It's so good.
Thank you very much. Thank you.
It's excellent. And now we're, going and discovering other stuff. People are, with Spotify and digital music, discovering Fleetwood Mac in 1973. People are also discovering that at the same time they discover an album that came out in 2023. And it's like, that's a thing that I don't think anyone ever expected. We're just, all music is new.
Yes. Yeah, because even when we would hear something like that when we were kids, it was quote unquote classic rock. Like you knew,
Right.
you knew the Eagles were aged. You knew
Yes.
Zeppelin was aged. I wonder too, I mean, it's just a thought, but like, I wonder if that has to do as well with like just the sound of everything has come back around. Like
Maybe.
like that Midlake record, The Trials of Van Panther. Like, I wonder if you like pop that record on. Such a good record. One of my favorites, but I wonder if you pop that record on to somebody who's like 14 right now and you're like, you play like Fleetwood Mac, Midlake, and then some Jackson Brown. Are they going to know that one of them is from 2005 and one of them is from...
Especially now with that record.
Right.
Because those guys, those were Denton kids. They knew what they were doing.
You're damn right about that. Yes. I
love they knew what they were doing.
Records. Bella Union, I think, was the label that they were on back in the day.
It was Bella Union.
Which was the Cocteau Twins label, I think. Which is
4AD, I think, was Cocteau Twins.
Oh, was it? Okay.
Maybe. Yeah. But yes.
But yeah, I wonder, just because some of that stuff's so cyclical, like the rock music we were hearing in like the early 90s, mid 90s, there wasn't really a lot that sounded like Fleetwood Mac at all. And like now there kind of is. Even like a lot of that stuff that Blake Mills and Phoebe and Ethan Gruska and that stuff that those guys are doing is so futuristic, but it's also based on like that same sort of old school principle, which is very exciting and cool that they're doing that.
You guys are very much in that boat because there's so much space, and this is the stuff I am not intelligent enough to eloquently explain space and compression to people, because when people are listening to music, it's just you want it louder.
You think you want it louder
when there's Yes.
Yes.
And that's the thing. When you listen to like Ethan Gruska, that album, that's great. And also Christian Lee Hudson.
Yeah, it's a flawless album. That's why we bring Ethan in to work on our records too. He's been an awesome collaborator just because his brain is incredible. I didn't know who he was other than hearing that first Phoebe record and thought that the production was unreal. I was like, what is going on? Like, and then Ethan's record we were listening to the other day with the band, it came on and I was like, try to tell me what you think one of these instruments is. Like, what do you think one of these is? And you try to listen, it's like, I have no idea, because he's a freak. So he's like, it's going to be like some, bass harmonica through, a Pog pedal with like a reverse and a distortion on it, that somehow sounds just like a piano. That sort of production, and like you said, the space that when you leave space, not oddly, makes sense actually, but it allows so many other areas for just small details that then inform what a headphones record is, and why you want to listen and hear like these things that are very meticulously placed across left and right, and see where they stick out. We did not know that lesson for a very, very long time. It took making a record that had zero space with our record Cope in order to try and go the opposite of that, leading into Swiss Army Man, where all it was space and an acapella. Sort of like a reprogramming of just like the palette of what could fit in a Pro Tools session. And we're still sort of chasing that down.
Do you ever like purposely limit your tracks? Like I was watching that Dark Side of the Moon doc, and I'm like, they did this with 16 tracks. Like,
it's funny.
A 16-track Otari tape.
me and Rob talk about that all the time, where it's like, what a cool decision they made to not have the bass in this part. And we're always like, I wonder if that was a decision or if they just couldn't fit it on that section.
No way.
Had to go like, something's got to stay and something's got to go.
Yeah.
Which is great.
I think about that all the time.
We don't limit ours. We do the opposite. We're like maximalists in that we just continue to add until it's way, way too busy. And then we just are really like a fire sale. We're just like deleting everything that we can that isn't the coolest to us, like moment. And a lot of times what we find is like, just do a quick example. It's like we start with an acoustic guitar doubled. All right, then we'll add some piano. Then we're adding like a Prophet. Then we're going to put some Mellotron on it. All right, let's put some vocals on it. All right, let's put some bass on it. All right, let's put like, kind of drum pad on it, and then bullshit. Oh, it'd be cool. Like some, like some glockenspiel. And we're just like, and all of a sudden it's out of control. And on Valley of Vision, this happened a bunch. Like the seventh idea, when you delete all that other shit, that's then like, that is now taking the place of your original doubled acoustic guitar, quote unquote, scratch track. So now all of a sudden you're like, you're basing a song off of an arpeggiated Prophet sound, and, a shaker that you added to try and fix how the doubled acoustic guitars weren't quite in rhythm. So you needed to add a little something else. And then you've got yourself this whole other palette of sounds. And then we're all like horned up, being like, this is going to be dope. So I was like, how do we find like the 4 or 5 weirdest things that work together as the kind of the basis of it? That's sort of the process recently.
Oh, that's amazing. I think about that all the time, where like I reread the Recording Pet Sounds book, and there were all these moments when like Brian Wilson was just losing it and adding more and more stuff on there. And they were like, this is incredible. And then he would call everyone back to his house, and he was on LSD at this time, very heavily, really losing it. And he sat everyone down. And this is just going to break your heart. And he's like, you guys, I figured it out. This is it. Because Pet Sounds was like a very much inspired by and almost a retaliation to Rubber Soul, the Beatles album. And so he's like, this is it. This is going to blow those Beatles guys out the water. And he sits down on the piano and he presses one note, boom, and he just hits it over and over again for like 5 minutes. And they were like, oh, dude.
Uh-oh.
They're like, it's over. What are we doing now? He's just hitting one note.
We take it all away. The idea is no
this is
music.
It. We got it. We got it. And they're like, and then he was getting pissed off because he wanted sand on his toes.
That's
so he was
right.
like bringing in
like
buckets
put it
of
all
sand
around the piano. Yeah, that's right. And he'd have like playing all night long.
Yeah.
that being said, that record then, scared the Beatles so much that they had to go make Sgt. Pepper,
Sgt. Pepper. Yeah. I mean, and by the way, Pet Sounds over Sgt. Pepper all day. Sorry. Cancel me. I don't care what it
No,
take.
I think you're right. Probably if you go song for song, they're both perfect, but I know what you mean.
Yeah. Plus they had to reinvent themselves, like physically.
It's very true.
None of those guys had to grow a mustache to make a better song.
It's very true. What's up with you and the
Just
Beatles,
saying,
dude? You got like some issues?
Yeah. I don't know. You're right. Why am I'm throwing a lot of shots at the Beatles?
It's okay.
Maybe it's because they're up on Mount Olympus, and sometimes it's just easier to hate the gods.
Well, that being said, I just rewatched like the first half hour. Just had a moment, and I'm always trying to find just like, even if it's a musical doc I've seen again. I just rewatched the Eagles one. I think that's weirdly my happy place. I could watch a music documentary on an artist that I've hated for my entire life, and I will finish that music doc and be like, respect, man. It's good to see somebody out there.
So wait, you said the Eagles? So
I love them. I love Eagles, but that documentary is always, it's fun to watch them too, being a musician for all these years and being in the industry. The first time I saw that was 10 years ago, and then watching it 10 years later, and I understood it way more than I did the first time. Anyways, I was watching that Beatles doc, and they're all in there like the first or second day, and they're like, George is like, why don't we have a 4-track in here? And it's like, aren't they going to bring one in? He's like, yeah, they said they bring a 4-track, but they said they can't bring an 8-track. And Paul's like, they're bringing a fucking 8-track to the Beatles in Bangladesh. I mean, to the Beach Boys in Bangladesh. They can't bring us. And they're like, you could tell they're like, chests are puffing up. I'm like, y'all are in the Beatles. It's cool. You can get an 8-track. Like, that's fine, I'm sure. Like, EMI's got to bring it. Like, they're mad, Like, we need more than 4 tracks. It's like, yeah, probably.
Well, the best is right how that ends, because freaking George Harrison's like, I got one. I'll just bring my own personal one.
Exactly. They're like, we got Psycho Steve over here. Remember that dude in the documentary too, just making shit the whole time? They're like, he's got the 7-neck guitar with a Rubik's Cube on the bottom.
Yeah. I mean, yeah, I've been maybe that's it. I've just been so into all these Beatles stuff lately too. Just like analyzing as much as I can. Like I'm really going to find the source. You know what I mean? Like divine inspiration.
Totally. And I think I would get annoyed with it. Like, cause everybody talks about it all the time, but I don't. It is worth analyzing to that level. It's really a miracle. And like the short amount of time that happened, it is really, it's like a shooting star.
Someone went up to Paul McCartney once. This is like a famous quote. And they were just like, man, the Beatles and this and the Beatles, and you could have done this and you could have done this. And why didn't you? And Paul McCartney's response to the guy was like, you got to let it go, man.
Yeah, exactly.
He's like, you got to let it go.
I'm sure he feels that way. It's like, we didn't mean to do this.
Just like chill, man. Oh, geez. So you're getting ready to go on tour with the ultimate. This is going to be nuts. You and Jimmy Eat World.
Yeah, unbelievable.
What are you freaking prepared for all this? I mean, there's a perfect storm of people being madly obsessed with rediscovering a lot of the music from like the early aughts.
Right.
Where it's like Chris Carrabba of Dashboard Confessional, even like Get Up Kids, a buddy of mine was in that band, and like
I love the Get Up Kids.
There's like a rebirth that's about to happen, and Jimmy Eat World is definitely up there. Are you guys pumped? What's the plan here?
It's funny about Jimmy. I'm not sure they ever left like just being a solid rock band. Like that's why I've always loved them so much too. Is because it's just been like just great work. You're like day one. Great work, no drama. You're gonna enjoy listening to it. They just get better. The live show's always good. Jim's voice always sounds good. We are fans, and so when it came up to do a co-headline with them, there was really a huge moment that just kind of happened for all of us. Just like, whoa, man! Like we've done a lot of awesome things in our career and stuff that we never thought would happen. But that one, just to kind of feel like, whoa, we're like being respected by a band that we hold to the highest respect, and we're being looked at as equals, and it just nerded us all out, truly. And then getting to know them before the tour starts and having, long phone conversations with these guys, just going like, whoa, these are like just secure, kind adults, who are just like
amazing.
Wanting to have a great tour. And we are hopefully the same, we are aiming to be. So I think it's going to be a blast, man. I've been trying to find like, who's our band going to be? Like NoFX and like Bad Religion always had each other. It's like, go do some things. I'm like, dude, I'd be fine if that's Jimmy forever. We'll go do a tour every other year,
What a great analogy. Yeah, NoFX and Bad Religion, those were epic tours.
Yeah.
You must have gone to the Warped Tour a bunch, huh?
I never went to one Warped Tour. Not a single one. Dude, I was on tour already, They weren't asking us to play.
No, wait, this was, because you started touring what, 03?
Yeah, like 05. When we started, like significant. 04, I was a merch guy for a summer, and then 05, I started branching out. Man, yeah, we got asked to do the Warped Tour a few times, but it was just like, I'm not gonna do that. It was $100, and like all you ever heard was, "It's the worst experience of your life." So like, I think we're like gonna pass on it now.
Yeah, I saw a Warped Tour, and I remember it was The Offspring was one of the headliners, and the dude from The Offspring got on stage and was like, "You guys are the shittiest audience we've ever played for." And I was like, "Oh man, dude is about to have a breakdown."
Yeah,
and all of us were sitting there.
Where was this?
In our Hurley. This was in St. Louis. This was at Riverport.
Yeah, dude. This is
which I don't know
3
what it's
weeks
called
into
now.
the worst summer of his life. Like he couldn't handle it. He had one too many vegan hot dogs that day, and he was ready to let y'all have it.
I was like, they must have been printing money at the merch table, though, because nothing's worse than like a 13-year-old kid forcing his mom to buy an Offspring T-shirt. I mean, which is probably now worth $300 or something.
One of my first shows like that was when I was in the 8th grade in Atlanta. They used to have this festival called Big Day Out. They take over Atlanta, Lakewood, cool outdoor. They like Dave Matthews would play there and stuff, like outdoor amphitheater. And 2 bands got canceled that year that I was looking forward to. And it was Coldplay and Jimmy Eat World. This is like 2001. Maybe 2001. They get canceled, replaced by Nickelback and Collective Soul. And the lineup was, who else was there? Tenacious D, pre-first record.
Oh my God. This sounds fantastic.
Oh man, the bands were amazing. Alien Ant Farm was there. It was very much that, like right at, Seven Dust, Godsmack, 311. Gosh, who else? It was, just sort of not really sure what my musical taste was. Like the only thing that makes that lineup better is you pop System of a Down in there. But yeah, like that was, remember that period? It was like, it's very Limp Bizkit era. It's like, I know this rocks and I know it's making me rock. Yeah. And I just don't think I've found
distortion pedals. Yep.
Check. Melodies. Check. I'm not seeing the problem here.
Yeah.
I did love like pop punk music. I loved Blink-182 when I was young and still like Blink-182. But yeah, I was a fan of those guys too. And then it was really like finding bands like Get Up Kids and Jimmy Eat World that I think sort of led to me finding other bands that were just a step outside of mainstream and, had an interesting thing going on. And then it leads into the Built to Spills and Modest Mouse and that era of records. And that's when I really started getting into finding records and weird bands that everybody else knew about.
Yeah. Like, I think it's, you start with those and you find your way into, because I think like, yeah, I was like into that. And then all of a sudden I'm like getting into Dismemberment Plan, where it's like learning about time signatures. And my dad would walk in and be like, that guy's playing in 7/3. That's insane. What is he doing?
Totally.
And I'm like, what are you talking about?
Talking about Gyroscope. I know exactly the song you're talking about. Like,
yes, exactly.
I love Dismemberment Plan. That is still a band that I will play before we start working on records. Be like, we have to be more like this band. Like, this is so cool and ahead of its time. Deeply ahead of its time.
That's the stuff that like breaks my heart a little bit, because I'm sure those guys are fine now, but like they were not slinging records that much. And I mean, you want your heroes to do well, right? And it's like, I'm sure that there's people that are getting into them now and doing it, but it's like, I don't know, what would have been like if Q and Not You would have really hit harder and all that stuff. Like,
yeah, I don't think there's any rhyme. I mean, I'm sure that you can look at, particular moments and why and whatever, but in my mind, there's really no rhyme or reason why something does pop off like that and then why something doesn't. Because I'm with you. You can go listen to some of that Dismemberment Plan stuff, and like that's the catchiest chorus you'll hear in a minute.
Yeah.
But it also made you think about it. Remember that song You Were Invited off of
oh yeah,
maybe Emergency Now or whatever. I remember that song blowing my mind. Just thinking like, he has not played. There's no guitar for anybody who hasn't heard this song. There's no guitar. It's just a weird little drum beat. He sings all a cappella until the chorus. Drum beat's gone. Just this really nice guitar line, sings this beautiful chorus. Then second verse, no instrumentation, just this drum beat again. And then it pops into this like raging, huge chorus at the end. And just thinking like, okay, same with just certain records. You hear like Radiohead records, or you just go like, I guess there aren't any rules really. We can just try anything you want, and if you think it's
so many things were on that album. What Do You Want Me to Say was also on there too. Yeah.
And they were panning red wire, black wire in the left and right. So cool.
Oh man, this is epic.
I could nerd about this music forever, man. This is pretty much what happens if we have a couple drinks. You're just hanging at the studio. We're just going, oh, remember this one? Oh, you ever heard this?
Well, I mean, it's so Damon Albarn, who's like a personal like hero of mine. That's basically how he writes most of his music. Not that he's stealing stuff from other people, but it's just like he was really into like Fela Kuti, and he was really into like, and he just would put it on and then go, eat lunch or something, and then come back and end up writing, trying to capture like Britt Daniel of Spoon talked about when they were trying to make some stuff. He was listening to Marvin Gaye's "What's Going On," and you know how like in that there's a bongo hit, right, where also like the snare hits like boom,
yep,
and it's like filled with reverb, right? And they were trying to figure out like what's that, like how can we get that sound, how which led them to recording other stuff on there. But I feel like that's still the way to do it, especially now where it's like do that, or what are we gonna gather around our phone looking at bad memes? I mean, I don't know.
It's interesting. I heard Geddy Lee say this quote the other day.
Here we go.
Somebody asked, how do you find individuality as a musician? How do you develop your own thing? And he's like, well, first you have to just copy everybody, like as much as you can. Because even if you try to copy them, you're going to develop kind of your own weird like version of that because you're not them. That's just the way it is. You cannot emulate. Some people can, and it's too obvious, but like you can't really, I could sit down right now and be like, I'm going to write a Beatles song. It is not going to sound like a Beatles song. I'm not good enough to make it sound or cheat my way into making it sound like a Beatles song. But there's going to be something in there that sort of has like that thing to it. And then he says, and the other part is then you go get on a stage and you have to have this sort of bravado and confidence in order to deliver this sound. And he goes, and then once you kind of start developing this confidence in it, then your identity starts to come up, and then you feel more confident in trying your own things without being super influenced by all these people, but you still want to be listening to all these people, that are turning your sound and challenging you to try things. I thought that was a really cool way to think of it, and really made sense to me on my own journey. Because it's like, I've been trying to copy people forever and I just never sound like them, and like it just ends up sounding like us. And the more and more you do it, the more and more it sounds like you.
Do you think about the fact that now people are like trying to copy you?
Whoa, man.
I'm serious. Like you search you guys on YouTube and it's all these people trying to make covers.
That's crazy.
Some are, some are
sure
a little bit of work, but
I did see it because I do like this the guitar tab app. I really like that when I'm trying to figure out covers. So I pay this like $40 a year subscription so I can go get chords for my favorite songs and learn how to play them. And I looked up our band, and there were like hundreds of videos like doing tutorials about how to play our songs. And like not a one of these motherfuckers was right. No, I'm just kidding.
No, I'm
some
sure
of them are better than I
that.
am. They're like, oh, I should definitely play it there. I'm making it harder for myself. That I don't think about that as much as I can, but it is insane to me that is happening, or people are like influenced, or I'll get messages sometimes from folks just being like, I started doing this. And what's really crazy is like when they're like really great artists, and popular already. And then I find out, that they're fans of ours. That's crazy to me.
Yeah. I mean, I'm sure the Phoebe Bridgers stuff brought a lot of folks over. I mean,
yeah, what a like strange, great blessing that like she covers this song. This is pre like the explosion. We were just massive fans of her. And so asked if she would be down with doing it. And she does it. And then that song like sat there for a couple years. People like dug it or whatever. But then she obviously is like transcended space and time. That song caught on, and it is just a really cool, kind of. I'm just so impressed. I always knew she was awesome from the first record that we heard. But what really sold it was she could have easily phoned that cover version in and just kind of gone, okay, cool. I was asked to do it. I did it. But she made it incredible. I was like, man, okay. So like, not only is she like caring about her records, this is an artist that's clearly going to care about everything that she's doing. And she's, continues to prove that. Julian Baker is another collaborator and friend of mine that was just so surprising to me that she was a big fan. And, when reached out, we wanted to work together. Cause man, you never know. And it's always surprising to me when something like that comes up. I'm like, oh, okay, 'cause I thought I was the fan, but ends up we both are, which is cool.
That's so cool. Yeah, I mean, that Phoebe Bridgers, Comedy Bang Bang, all that stuff.
Yes,
that throws you guys
yes
into other echelons.
Oh, man. Yo, but for real, when I find out that I'm going to be on Comedy Bang Bang, I am more nervous than any time that I found out I was going to be on David Letterman. That is not a lie. That's the
incredible.
Most nerve-wracking. Scott, so great. If you don't know, this podcast, Comedy Bang Bang's my favorite podcast. And,
people know.
Okay, great.
Yeah.
Good. But yeah, he even asked me like a couple of months ago when they were on tour, sent me an email. I was like, hey, Andy, can you come out to the Tabernacle in Atlanta, like historic club, and do the live show with us, play a couple songs? I was like, like we were planning on going, like we had tickets just to go, weren't even going to hit him up, and he's like, you mind coming through? It's like, yeah.
Did you do it?
Yeah, we did it. It was amazing. Got to sit
yeah.
up there, and it was him and Paul F. Tompkins and Drew Tarver. It's an incredible list of folks. And it was so bittersweet because I had to sit up on the stage 3 feet from them, where half of me just wanted to be in the crowd as a fan, like you're just sitting there going like, please don't talk to me. Just please let me watch them.
Yeah. Just do your thing. Just jump into your characters, please.
Brilliance at every level. Those people, like, just really, I would say stand-up comedy and comedy in general. That's like a close number 2 on the things that bring me joy after music.
Oh yeah. The Gil Azarian there, who's a buddy, like every time he's on CBB, I just like absolutely lose it. I mean, he's incredible.
I don't know how they do
my
it.
wife was like, yeah, she was like, it was funny because I told her I was going to talk to you. And most of the time she doesn't really care who I'm talking to. But she was like, oh my God. She's like, you have to tell him that he's the best Comedy Bang Bang guest. And I'm like, what? I'm like, I didn't even know he was on. And I started like doing all this other research. I'm like, holy shit. Yeah.
That is the highest praise.
She's a junkie. She's heard every single one.
Same here. It's crazy. It's truly like being a part of a canon of just, I think what will go down is one of the greatest, podcasts of all time.
Absolutely. Well, Andy, I've taken up a ton of your time. Thank you. Thank you so much.
Man. Thank you so
chatting.
much.
Before we wrap, is there anything you want to add or mention that I didn't discuss with you or any of that stuff? Like,
no, there's not a ton other than this tour is coming. And if you happen to be a Manchester super fan, we do run a fan club over at Patreon, just patreon.com/Manchester Orchestra, where we do live shows and covers every month. And that's about the
Wait,
only
are you
thing I can plug.
serious?
Yeah, man. We've been doing it for like almost 3 years. We don't talk about it. It's like a hidden thing. But we've been doing a live show on there every month for almost 3 years.
Oh my God. Yeah, I'm going to sign up for this right now.
Right now, we're in the middle of covering pop 90s females cover songs. We've now done Cher. And we just did Torn, Natalie Imbruglia. Mazzy Star was last month.
Okay, I'm in. I'm in. Yeah, we have like Blammo was like used to be like very, very hyper focused like menswear stuff.
Mm-hmm.
It was like Sid Mashburn and Michael Bastian, whatever designers and stuff. And it got bigger and bigger, and people wanted more stuff. And so there was like musicians and actors and other people that have been on. And we started a Patreon. It was like right before the pandemic, and that's kind of like hyper nerd focused of like people, which is it's great,
Isn't
but it's like
it? Yeah.
created these like little more niches of stuff. And yeah, we love it.
I do too.
But
It's kept us like in a really great way. It's kept us busy and active as a band too. Like just
Dude, Tim Heidecker, man,
yeah,
his Patreon thing, yeah, perfect example.
absolutely. It's like okay, so when we during the pandemic, it was like okay, well at least we feel like we have like a job. Like we got a couple things we got to turn in every month. And now it's turned the first 18 months, we re-recorded every single song from our discography in a different version. And we do like 7 songs in a row, each month. And so it was this huge undertaking. We knew, like 80, 90 something songs. And once we knocked that out, we just held our first Patreon only, show the other night for our record Cope at this spot in Atlanta called the Earl. That's like a 200 cap room, and they sold it out immediately. And so it is a very cool kind of like streamline to people that really love about the band, and we do a podcast every month kind of thing. So yeah, it's been great. So if y'all are a fan, go check it out.
Oh, for sure. Well, Andy, thank you so much.
Thank you, man. This has been an absolute blast.
Thanks so much, man. It was great chat.
All right, bye.
That's it for our show. You've been listening to Blammo. Our show is produced by Blammo Media. We're edited by Amar Lal, and our theme music, as always, by the mysterious Breakmaster Cylinder. Look, if you like what you heard, share the pod with a friend. Be like, hey man, check out this show. Leave us a review on Apple Podcasts. Do all the things you do when you like things. You can follow us on Instagram for all the hot content at Blammo Podcast, or at myself, at The Kirkland. If you want to talk to us and give us your hot take, we'd love to hear from you. You can send us an email at info@blammopod.com. Last but not least, we have the Blam Fan. This is where if you want to hang out and join us and chat about anything and everything, you can visit us at patreon.com/Blammo, where we have tons and tons and tons of exclusive episodes from Blammo Presents Derek Guy, hosted by Derek Guy, to the Triple J Show, hosted by Gian Delian and John Moy, and myself. I'm the third J. It's a bunch of fun. Last but not least, the incredible, the amazing Slack community. All right, folks, we will see you soon.